Hey guys, welcome back. It's Brandon.
Yeah, and Carrie.
We're here today to talk to you about awareness and where that comes from in the system that we live in that's based around time and space. How it is a finite system that is not the end all be all.
So what I was wanting to do is kind of put it all together of all the videos that we've made so far and try to find the common denominator that strings throughout each and every one of them. So the first one we talked a little about the Sophos Sophia systems and the taint it love or the false love construct programming that is typical for this system. And the second was about it's about time, indicating that within this entire system, many say that time is not real. I say that time is a construct, and that when you leave the infinite, the thing that is truly eternal, you come into infinite. Time itself is like a line segment compared to a true line that goes eternally in both directions. And so what the system we're in is finite, whereas the twirling and swirling of the fractals within that system is infinite. It's constantly swirling, twirling, moving in a myriad of directions, everything all together all at once, so to speak. The next one we talked about was the unseen energies and of the necessity of clearing and keeping things clear, and the different ways that we are manipulated, and some different ideas on what to do when you're sensing and listening to your own higher self that you are being manipulated. And then we talked a bit about fasting as another tool to use to help clear those energies out of old ways of thinking, old indoctrination, old educational system, old habits, old ways of coping, and embracing or filling those empty places then with the new information, the new way of doing things. And then the final one we did was even if you don't deserve it, you must go through it, where we discussed some of the basic tenets that are salient throughout this entire system, which again is finite. Within the system, however, is a myriad, an infinite number of different combinations and reals and alternatives and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So the point being that once we get to the awareness that we are within this finite system that is part of true eternity, or actually is separated from it, then we can increase our ability to modify our own location and our own interactions within this type of system.
And for me, this started with being still. When I had things happen to me, be it events or trauma, and going off the patterns of their script in which they want to keep me on through trauma bonds and through depression, or we can go medication, we can go all the various routes. You have to limit the amount of distractions so that you can actually sit at peace with yourself, forgiving yourself for some of the things that happened, because back then you didn't know any better. You weren't as aware as you are now. And so when it comes to awareness, you have to be aware of things, just like the idea of the false light. If the religious people want to believe in going to the false white light and getting their mind wiped and coming back and doing this rigmarole again, all for it, because they are unaware and unwilling to accept an awareness of a bigger picture, that there's more further and beyond this place.
You're absolutely right. So the awareness is the first step towards making any kinds of changes. So what happens a lot of times is that we get into situations and end up looking and seeing, oh my God, I'm going through the same situation again. It's just got different clothes, or it's got different outfit, or there's different players in it, but it's the same type of situation. And this is an example of being able to start picking out patterns in our own lives of things that we are always drawn to, this type of person, or to this type of situation, or to this type of emotion, or this way to react to different things. When we start seeing that these things start to produce either anxiety in us, or we just the discomfort of it, it's a signal in there within us that something needs to change. I need to re-examine these patterns that I'm working from or coming through. And so, where the overseers of this world like to see a great degree of predictability, conformity within the patterns that they put into the programming that goes into our very genetic material, then it gives them a greater ability to predict the outcomes of each situation that they present. And so with the greater predictability of outcomes or production, then they can get into when they sell those features or whatever they do. I think they do marketing in the higher realms, like commodities. Then they know what to base their stock prices on, because stock is based on the stock market, which was based on livestock originally. So we're not too far off. And if we look at the little things even in the day-to-day, we can see exactly what chattel is used for and the purpose for everyone here in that regard. So if we learn to pay attention to those patterns that we ourselves go through and that help to create anxiety, depression, these different what we call negative emotions, actually if we learn to look at those as our own little flag system of saying, whoa, something needs to change, we need to step out of the groove. But the first thing is in seeing, when we start to see the same old crap going on over and over, that's the first step to awareness. The second step, I think, would be when we see that awareness increase about these patterns, then comes the opportunity to make our own choice to do or be something different than what we've been doing before. And so that is another first step to getting out of the groove that we oftentimes find ourselves into, whether it's a groove of compliance, of obedience, of 9 to 5, of whatever the thing is. And even within those constructs, I'm not an advocate of quitting everything and go float around, at the top of Mount Everest or whatever floats your boat. Hey, if that's your thing, I think you should do that. But, for most people, it's just not practical. But within that, we can still be in this world and function in it. What I do advocate is learning the rules of this world so that we can overcome it through their own system, through their own thing, their own way, and not oppose it, not fight against it, not so much rage against the machine. Now, I am a big advocate of standing your ground, which is a little bit different deal. But these guys know our tendencies and our patterns and our own characteristics. And I think that they've learned how to manipulate that over all these years. And so that's why they like predictability and conformity. And the better that we conform to their stimulus and their predicted response, then the more enslaved and entrenched we are in their system.
Yeah, I find that very interesting, Carrie. They want to distract you from your own ability to have awareness. They will set up handlers here and jobs there and routes for them to maintain a level of control so that you are basically being funneled back into their system when you awaken yourself. You actually are aware enough to realize what's happening. So you're trying to veer off and seek the truth, find yourself, do your spiritual journey, go within. And so for me, it's become a task of limiting those distractions. We can sit around all day on YouTube and Rumble and BitChute or all the streaming services, Netflix, whatever, and we can be distracted by everybody else's message that they're getting. But you're going to find that as you become more aware and you learn how to discern and you take the truth, because the truth is the only thing that matters, you will realize how often you are being distracted by cigarettes or by TV or by movies or by going out and doing the same things every single day. So imagine you're playing the video game The Sims and you create your character. Well, in that game, what do? They wake up, they eat, they get dressed, they go to work, they come home, they eat, they get undressed, they shower, and go to bed. So out of those, we'll say 10 things, the system will know what those 10 things you are doing on a day-to-day basis 7 days a week. And when you start to change those things up, I challenge anybody listening to this to go off of the beaten path that you have been beating that your own drum to. So if you go to 5 or 6 places to eat, try doing something different. Try becoming a little bit more unpredictable, using your awareness and your discernment and knowing the patterns that they have been trying to keep you in for all this time.
Absolutely. I like how you said that about keeping you in them. It makes me think of boxes. I can't stand boxes. Everyone wants to throw a box around you so that they can feel more comfortable and keep you in something that is easy for them to predict about you. And so my other side of me is always, well, put me in a box and I will do something absolutely off the wall and to totally obliterate the boundary set on me by someone else of their attempt to try to predict what I'm going to do or feel or think or act, because I'm not going to be put in that box. And so I felt like I was in one growing up and I couldn't stretch out of it. And so I just don't like them. I think that it's confining and it's not who we are. If we consider that really inside us is eternity, we're just a chip of that eternity in here. And when we get fully reconnected with our own higher self and calling in the rest of our shards, basically, I think that we'll step into our own true self.
Totally agree, Carrie. I don't know how much we've mentioned the shards or fragmentations that have happened to us each individually in the past, but that is something we're going to be talking about going forward, guys, is calling in things, shards and fragments, null and void on any contracts from this life and previous lives. Anything that is not of or for my highest good does not need to be involved with this spirit. And that's a conviction you have to have on a day-to-day basis, because you're going to have things come in. You're going to have little, well, what if I do this? Or what if I go here and kind of act up? Or just, I need a release. Whatever the case may be, you're going to get tempted. I think I said this in one of the other videos. It's about every time I've tried to quit doing, we'll call it an addiction or a vice or doing something, I get prompted by people around me to partake in that same thing I'm trying to push away. It just is one of the things that we have to deal with and learn to have that level of discernment with.
It is, and it's funny how it always seems to be that way. The thing we try the hardest to stay away from is the thing we keep getting presented from or presented with over and over again until we really resolve within ourselves to stand firm and push back and say, no, thank you, or no, get the heck out of my face, whichever one is most appropriate.
I do want to say this about awareness, and I find it interesting because there's different schools of thoughts that this is a school of some sorts. If it is in any way, because everything here and everywhere else has multiple meanings, it doesn't mean just one thing. So think of it metaphorically in a vast array of meanings. Well, if this is a school, you need to reschool yourself to be able to walk down that path, that narrow path, and you're going to be aware and observe, what the bad side's doing over here, and then what the good side or white hats, whatever you want to call them, over there are doing. And not get entangled on either way, so that polarity shift that was before awakening, but while you were asleep, is probably going way to the right, way to the left. But with the awareness of who you are, what you are, and that there is so much more, then you can simply observe these things and view them as what they call rabbit holes or pitfalls or other traps that will keep you, again, distracted from increasing your overall level of awareness.
Oh, yeah. I like what you said about rabbit holes, because that brings up a point. You will never, ever, ever get to the bottom of the rabbit hole, because one will inevitably always lead to another, and then another, and then another. There's not just one rabbit. There's not just one hole to fall down into. The whole thing goes loop, 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 loopity loop, all the way around, over and over again. That's part of the infinite cycling in this system. That's all about patterns and cycles. And once you figure that out and can be satisfied with that's what it is, those are patterns and cycles, and start to recognize them immediately when you start to see them, and step out of the trap of that and find the middle road again, out of that or away from that, because those are by design intended to keep us ensnared and trapped and looping back around and distracted totally from reconnecting with our own inner truth, which is permanently embedded in some of the souls of the people in this existence.
Remember, everybody, that truth is. It's not his truth, her truth. Truth is. You cannot change it. It just is. And if you can remember who you are and have that level and carry that level of awareness with you and stay narrow, you're going to find your way home.